Hey, welcome. My name is Cara Copeland, and I am here with three teachers across the state of Oregon, Relief Nursery staff members. And today we are going to be finding out more what it is like to work at a relief nursery. This is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and relief nurseries are critical in the state of Oregon at strengthening families with the goal to prevent child abuse, to strengthen children, to make sure that they are ready for kindergarten and that they can remain safely living with their families. So I'm going to introduce my friends that are here with me today from relief nurseries around the state. And we will start first with Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily. I work at a relief nursery and I'm an early childhood education specialist, which means I do home visits with the families and I also work in the classrooms. And I also occasionally do parent trainings. It's kind of a catch-all job. And I've been there for almost 2 years.
Great. Jennifer?
Hi, so my name is Jennifer, and I work at the Relief Nurseries as a parent educator. And I have been at the Relief Nursery for about 16 years in a couple of different roles, but my primary focus has been parent education throughout.
Great. And Joanna?
Hi, I'm Joanna and I work at Relief Nursery. I am the preschool teacher, home visitor, and I've been there for 3 years.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Well, we just have a few questions to find out more about your role. And I want to start with what brings you the greatest joy in working at the Relief Nursery? And again, why don't we start with Emily and go from there?
Great. My greatest joy, hands down, well, there's two. I couldn't pick just one. But the first one is seeing the progress that families make, seeing families really work to make systematic change and break the cycle of abuse, because we often see that passed down through generations. And through parent education, through the therapy, the programs, the nursery, I see people really committing themselves to raising their children differently. And that gives me a lot of hope for our future, because I know that when those kids go on to become parents, the cycle will be broken or at least improved. And then the other thing that brings me the greatest joy is just being with the children. I love being with the children. That's always a wonderful part of the day.
Great. Thanks, Emily. And what about you, Jennifer?
Similar to what Emily said, I think seeing families recognize that they want to break the patterns. They don't want to parent their children the way they were parented, and but not having the understanding of how to do that, and being able to see their progress and their effort to try to break the pattern is really inspiring to see that. And I think that probably another really important part is every time I walk into a room and a kid goes, "Teacher Jenny," and runs up and gives me a hug, it just melts my heart. And occasionally one of the most amazing highlights is when I get a card or a message from a family that I worked with years ago who it doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's so heartwarming to know that that the work that we've done has had such a profound impact on the families, and that they're doing well and are happy.
Yeah, and I would guess, Jennifer, the amount of time that you've been working with the Relief Nursery, you've impacted a lot of families. So hopefully you have a lot of cards coming your direction.
I hope so. I hope so.
And Joanna, what brings you the greatest joy?
Well, first of all, the children in the classroom, just seeing their smiles every time they come in the classroom, that's awesome. And then the family's growth. And when they accomplish a small goal that we've been working together, I mean, that's huge for me. That's a celebration for myself and the family, just celebrating that they were able to complete one tiny goal from many more that will be completed.
Yeah. Thank you. I love to hear what brings staff the greatest joy, because again, this month we are really focusing on staff at relief nurseries and the important work that you do. Many of you talked about that work, and you talked about breaking those intergenerational cycles. I'm wondering for our next question, if you could talk about some of the struggles that you see that families experience. And Joanna, why don't we start with you this time?
Yeah. So I see in my families, I see that they struggle finding resources.
Hmm.
Just having the strength to sometimes go out there and find those resources because they have so much going on in their life already, so much stressors and happening, so many things happening. Just finding those resources. That's what I feel like most of my families struggle right now with.
Yeah. Emily, what about you?
Um, Also, definitely resources. I agree. And especially resources for children with developmental delays, anything from a language delay to autism. I definitely do a lot of work around that, getting them connected with the right people. But also, we have clients struggling with drug addiction. Some of them are in treatment for some of our families in active treatment. And other times, and we see them relapse, which can be really hard. And then we can see them, get back in treatment. And I would say with the pandemic, one of the things I've really seen parents struggle with, especially who are recovered addicts, is the sobriety. Maintaining their sobriety during this time of isolation has been really, really difficult. They're just stuck at home with their young children and without a lot of those supports that they desperately need. So for me, sometimes just being on the phone with them I've been able to just reach out to them that way. Like at least somebody is still checking in on you, and we've gotten through it. I'm happy to report. So
Sure. Thank you for sharing that. I know that we will see a lot of uh, impacts from this pandemic as we get back into homes, and really are um, glad that the relief nurseries have remained open and have been available to families. Jennifer, what about you? You have a long experience of working with families. What are some of the struggles that you see families experiencing?
Well, I think that yeah, exactly what Emily and Joanna said, those are consistent throughout the state and with our families. And I think that, parenting young children is incredibly difficult. Um, and seeing parents struggle with not only their sobriety or their mental health or their um, needing to work and financial struggles and maintain that emotional stability for their children. um, it To me, sometimes I look at families and I don't know how they do it, even with the support that we're able to provide. It is it's an overwhelming um well, I guess in our culture in general and in we don't support parents the way that they need to be able to be present with their children. They're struggling with figuring out how to pay rent, how to get food, how to get to the job, who's doing childcare, where's, and all that going on there, and then add on their mental illness or addiction or poverty, and it becomes sometimes um, it feels sometimes insurmountable. Um, though I do see parents do it every day, and I'm always amazed and inspired by that.
Mm. Thank you, Jennifer. I know that as I hear the stories that each of you are sharing, this is the magic of relief nurseries. And this is where relief nurseries fill in the gaps when families are struggling and provide that wraparound support. But I know in my own experience working at a relief nursery that I was also impacted and changed. And I'm wondering if we can dive down a little more personally here, and each of you could share a little bit of how has working at a relief nursery impacted you personally, And Jennifer, I guess if it's okay, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I've spent most of my adult life working at a relief nursery, and definitely as a parent of a child working at the relief nursery. I started educating as a parent educator when my son was 4. And I think that doing this work has made me uh, a better parent for sure. You have to practice what you teach. And I think that I've gone through so many lifetimes at the relief nursery and have always just felt so supported and cared for. Um, and so personally, that's working in an environment where I feel valued and cared for is really important. And that it's so um, parallel to my working with families when I had a young child, the struggles that I experienced. It was really helpful for me to learn from the families that I worked with, as well as them learning from me. And watching them grow while I was growing. I'm still growing, and I'm still changing. I still make mistakes, um, and still feel like I'm uh, growing as a person every time have an I have an interaction with a family or teach a parenting class or whatever that might be.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing that. Joanna, what about you? How has working at the relief nursery impacted you personally?
Well, as a Spanish speaker, I hope that I had a class, a relief nursery to help me with my kids and able to have that person in the classroom with the Spanish and English speaking, having that dual language. Um, it really hits home when I'm speaking Spanish to the children, when I'm able to communicate with the families in Spanish, because lots of the Spanish speaking community, they sometimes don't know about the relief nurseries, or they don't want to participate because they think that there's not going to be someone there that they can communicate with. And then having that ability myself to being able to communicate with those families, being able to communicate with their children, in both English and Spanish, that's really hit home. And that's where it has been really personal for me. It's been impacted me.
Yeah, thank you, Joanna. I appreciate you sharing that. Emily, how about you?
On a personal note, it's a little bit harder of a question to answer, but I would say I guess I love this job. I feel like it's the perfect mix of a lot of different jobs I've had before, because we have the classroom, we have the home visiting, we have the full-on wraparound services. I'm able to use Spanish, and I've learned a lot more Spanish by working this job. Um, and also had a chance to do parent education or join committees. And I've been inspired. Like I really have a bigger understanding now of what people go through and all of the amount of privileges that I've had in my own life that set me up for the success I've had, and how many obstacles and barriers there really are for people. And then seeing them, like Jennifer was saying, seeing them persevere through that is, I'm in awe of them. So
Yeah.
that's always a wonderful part.
Well, I know none of us walks away unchanged in any role that we have, but I appreciate you guys sharing your perspectives on working at a relief nursery. I feel like, as you've each said, it's a special place to work. It's a special place to grow and be cared for and to care for others. And that's why we want to keep every staff person that we have at every relief nursery across the state. And part of the work that the Oregon Association of Relief Nurseries is doing is to advocate to our Oregon legislature for an additional $4.8 million for this next biennium to go towards our salary and wage gap that we are experiencing. if you are listening to this, you can read below about the wage gap. But those of you who are on this call, I just wonder if you could talk about be candid of what would increased salaries at the relief nurseries mean for you or for your colleagues that you work with? And let's start with Emily.
Yeah, well, my first part is, I can speak about my colleagues in a second, but my first part is it would make me feel more respected by society, because I think Joanna touched on it, that this work is so important and we're often told this work is so important, and it requires degrees and training and ongoing trainings, and it's rewarding, but it's also a lot of effort. So it would just make me feel more validated that the state is recognizing the importance of this work and the changes that we really are making, and not just talking about it. I hear a lot about early childhood and how it's so important, and how, we can determine the success of the child's future by the time they're 5, and all these studies, but then you don't always see it reflected in how we're paid. So that I think is the biggest one for me. And I think for some of my coworkers, some of them have had to actually take additional part-time jobs. So for them, especially if they're a single parent, it would be life-changing to be able to just devote themselves to one job and still be able to take care of their children and have enough resources.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Joanna, let's go over to you. What would increased salaries mean for you?
For me, just feeling validated. I mean, my work is, I feel it's important, but just feeling validated. As a bilingual speaker, I have to translate documents all the time back and forth, and that's a lot of work. And that's where I feel like it's not being appreciated enough with the pay. I mean, because it's a lot of work that we do, and just having, same pay as other preschool classrooms, being able to say, I'm willing to stay here longer because, they appreciate my work, they value my work.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Jennifer, how about you?
I love this question. I think that for me, I always say that I've committed myself to a life of service and poverty to do this work. I'm a single mom. And if I had more than one child, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. I would have had to gone somewhere else. And I can't even imagine that. I think that it's been a huge struggle for me financially to stay at the relief nursery. And I do it because I believe in the work, and it's my heart work. And I see how valuable, I mean, I couldn't do anything else. I don't think I could do anything else. And so, yes, I want to be valued. Yes, this work is so important. I think Emily and Joanna just articulated that beautifully. But on a really personal level, it's been really frustrating to really struggle with, okay, I've paid rent, being a step away from my clients, a paycheck away from being homeless, not quite qualifying for food stamps, but super close. And it would be really helpful. And so I think that quality of life, being able to do, I guess just comes down to quality of life. It's been hard. But I continue to do the work because I can't imagine doing anything else.
Well, thank you three for sharing so candidly about what is both personal and what is affects you and your colleagues. We have about 175 teachers and home visitors across the state of Oregon doing this work at 40 relief nurseries, and I know each of them would echo exactly what you have said. And your board of directors and your association stands behind you. We are doing our best to ensure that we can continue to serve the families that we serve and get the resources that you all need to do the amazing work. And I think about the cost it would be financially to have to replace the three of you and the years of experience and what we've already invested in you, not to mention the cost that that has on the children and families that you serve. So you have my commitment that we will continue to do everything that we can to ensure that you receive the support that you deserve. And I appreciate the time that you've spent with us today. If you are watching this video and you want to know more about how you can be the next Jennifer or Emily or Joanna, you can go to our website and click on the map, which will take you to a relief nursery in your area. Many relief nurseries are hiring today, or perhaps you know someone who wants to work at a relief nursery. Please send them to one of our sites. Or if you want to know more about relief nurseries, again, our website, www.oregonreliefnurseries.org. Thanks so much, everyone, for spending time with us today. And we look forward to hearing more from relief nurseries.